Here are 5 assumptions of startups and founders that are raising capital that make investors say no. As a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits, that's just a fancy way of saying I've made a bunch of mistakes. And I've made these assumptions as well, and I've ended up with a big fat no. I'm a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits, and that's just a fancy way of saying I've failed a bunch of times to your benefit because I use videos like this and my whole YouTube channel to try and help founders, especially early stage founders raising pre-seed or seed funding, avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made. In this case, the assumptions that I've made that have made other investors say no to me. Now, I've raised over $100 million for my startups, other people's startups, and funds. And as the chief strategy officer for startups.com, I've advised over 600 founders and seen 1,000 other founders cross my desk. I work with a team right now that's raised over $700 million for startups. So we've been around, and I've seen a lot of the rejections that founders can get. Not to mention the dozens of pitch decks I look at every single week. A lot of the pitch decks that founders like you out there are sending me, and I appreciate all of it. And I've gotten pretty good out of the gate which pitch decks and which founders are just going to get an immediate no because of these assumptions. And it's not just the assumptions, it's how the founders go about proving whether their assumptions are wrong or right. It's about making the right assumptions that are right. And unfortunately, if you look at the failure rate of startups, 90% of startups fail. It's because founders are making the wrong assumptions. To go even a step further, when you make an assumption, it is your responsibility to test the assumption with first principles thinking versus anecdotal thinking. Anecdotal thinking is when you have a story in your head or you've heard a story somewhere else and you say, I can live that story. That's my story. I'm going to make that story happen. Whereas first principles is approaching assumptions like a scientist. You go out there and say, okay, I got the story in my head. It's an assumption. How do I validate or invalidate this assumption as quick as possible? Let me make this super simple for you when it comes to an investor's perspective, because that's what founders do all the time. They make assumptions that investors are seeing things the way that they see them. It's simply not true. What it boils down to is the investor wants to know, have you de-risked this startup enough so that I can trust you with my money? Now, I believe every startup and every founder has a better than 0% chance of making it, becoming a unicorn, changing the world. It is your job then to de-risk it, work through your assumptions, validate or invalidate them so you can prove to advisor, investors, co-founders, partners, all future stakeholders that you are the startup to bet on. You know what they always say? When you assume, you make an ass of you and me. In this case, think of it like an investor. If you assume, you make an ass of you, the founder, but also me, the investor, for investing in you. And when your startup fails, well, nobody likes that situation at all. So let's get into the 5 assumptions that make investors go, really? Let's start with number 1. The first one is you make an assumption that you have founder problem fit. Basically, founder problem fit answers the question on whether or not you are the right founder for the problem. Right out of the gate, this starts with a founder going, I have an idea for a solution, not really thinking about the problem. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, haven't you thought about the problem before you even start thinking about the solution? Well, it's the amount of time and the assumptions that you are testing to be part of the problem that you are solving rather than I'm going to build the solution. At its extreme, this is where founders get passionate about something. I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to solve climate change because the world is heating up, global warming and mass disasters all over the place, and they have absolutely no relevance to that problem. Relevance to the problem comes in 2 forms. You have domain expertise that is greater than the common knowledge out there. You have specific insights in the problem that the regular person, a normie like me, does not have. Or the second is you've worked on the problem before, or you've worked adjacently to the problem, and you are immersed in the problem. You know it inside out. You've seen so many reps of it, you can predict when that problem occurs before anybody else does. And not only that, if you've immersed yourself in the problem and you've worked on the problem before, you can see how current solutions don't work. You can see all the alternative solutions that users go to when they don't have the solution that you are thinking of. You are fully immersed. In other words, you are the expert that others will come to when they want to learn about the problem. And that's the reason investors look for teams and they want to know the bullet points of how much of a domain expert are you and how much have you worked on this problem before. Let's say you're an athlete and you want to go solve problems in fintech. That's just not going to work. If you're an athlete, you can solve problems in athletics. That's the immediate one-to-one correlation. It's not to say you can't become a domain expert in a problem that you're not used to, but you have to put in the work and you have to show investors. And so if you automatically assume that you are the founder that fits the problem, investors are going to challenge that. And that happens right away on the bio slide. Happens right away when investors meet you and they start asking questions. They'll start asking questions like, how did you come up with this problem to solve? What inspired you to go out and solve the problem, start making the solution? Let me summarize this one. Passion is not enough. You must have technical domain expertise in the problem. You've either worked on the problem before, or you can show investors that you've done everything you can to understand this problem inside out. And if you do this correctly, you're going to attract co-founders and advisors, which make the investors even more comfortable. They trust you. It's not enough to have surrogates or proxies on your team that cover your weakness in this area. If you're the CEO, you are the founder, you must demonstrate founder problem fit. The second assumption is founder market fit. It's just like founder problem fit, but do you fit the market? And there is a big difference. This is one of the assumptions that has killed me the most. If I had to look at all the ways that I have failed to raise money, it is assuming founder market fit. Founder market fit is not only can you develop the solution to the problem because you've got founder problem fit, but it's also can you distribute the solution? Are you immersed enough in the market? Do you fit the market enough that you can figure out all the issues with distribution that are going to come after you got your solution out there? You know how they always say at Y Combinator, you should be doing two things: shipping product and talking to users. This is how you address development and distribution. Shipping product is all about development. Distribution, you talk to users out there. And one of the clear signs that I see coming a mile away is when a founder says, I don't know who to talk to understand or learn about the problem. If you are in idea validation or customer discovery and you do not know who to talk to, if you have to go and pay a service to go and talk to your users, you do not have founder market fit. The best founders out there can pick up the phone and call industry contacts, people who are experts in the industry, people who have the best reputation, who are connected to networks upon networks, and say, hey, I need to talk to you about this problem. Here's what I'm thinking. You know who to talk to get LOIs or initial MOUs right out of the gate. And if you can't get to the decision maker, you know 6 other people who will gladly introduce you to that decision maker. Let's say you have a solution. It's a SaaS where the CEO has to make a decision. If you can't get to the CEO, then you will not have distribution. But if you're talking to CEOs on a daily basis, then fantastic. You're in. You've got founder market fit. Not only that, you have to have a good reputation. You have to understand the cultural nuances, the macro culture, the microculture. So here's the test. If you cannot pick up the phone, send a LinkedIn, text message, email, and you cannot reach the experts, the mavens, the connectors, the tastemakers, the rainmakers, the key stakeholders in your industry, you got to spend your time and you got to get in there. You have to develop the reputation. You have to get that street cred and spend time out there. Maybe it's hanging out in forums and answering questions and developing influence, having people come to you. You're going to be spending time getting to know and understand the behaviors of all your potential users, how the market works, the competition, the trends, what's in, what's out, what's vogue, what's not. And when you're sitting in front of investors, you will be able to give them unique and novel insights into the market that they do not have themselves. They'll make assumptions themselves and say, well, I thought this industry worked this way. And you will say, no, actually it isn't. I was talking to so-and-so at this company, and they've let me know that this is where the industry is going. And we're going to have a conversation as soon as we're able to talk about landing this deal and making sure that we can solve this problem for them. Great stories such as I called the VP of this company, and they set me up with 6 other meetings in the organization. Or I'm a regular speaker. I'm considered an influencer in this market, and people see me as a go-to expert, and I know how to navigate the environment and create more opportunities, and therefore you have an informed go-to-market strategy because you know the market. Founder market fit. The third assumption is problem solution fit. The most egregious form of this assumption is a founder that goes out and chunks down $50,000, $150,000 to build a solution that nobody cares about. Now, you've stacked the issues to get to this point in time. You made assumptions about founder problem fit, and then founder market fit, you made assumptions there because you haven't talked to anybody and nobody's actually given you the real advice that you need to see to actually create a product that solves the problem. The signs of this that investors look for are vanity metrics. I talked to a founder once and it was a very disappointing and discouraging conversation because this founder said to me, well, I know people want my solution and I know it solves their problem. I said, how do you know? Well, look at the traffic to my website. I said, okay, traffic to your website, is that enough? What do they do on your website? Do they buy anything? Do they tell you? Have they signed up for a waiting list? No, I just have a lot of traffic on my website. That's a massive assumption that somehow traffic to your website equals problem solution fit. Vanity metrics are all over the place, and it's so easy to fudge these metrics, to inflate them. Investors are weary of this and can see it a mile away. Look at the scandals like Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. She raised hundreds of millions of dollars and did not have problem solution fit. She made a whole bunch of assumptions, and the investors made a whole bunch of assumptions. Now think about those investors now who made those assumptions and how they look, and look at Elizabeth Holmes. Her reputation, she's, I think, going to jail or in jail already. So to avoid this assumption, you have to go out and test. First principles testing, and find real data, real metrics that show you've got problem solution fit. You need qualitative proof and you need quantitative proof. Qualitative proof for all the stories, the testimonials, the people that you're talking to, and then quantitative is actual metrics that show time using the app. Does it actually do what it says it's going to do? Do people stay? Is there massive amounts of churn? Are there more people signing up and getting the result that you promised? Have they actually gotten to the final outcome that you are intending as far as your solution is concerned? Are they celebrating it? Those are the metrics that you need to have and show. The receipts have to be there in your pitch deck, and you have to be able to talk to investors about it. This is why a lot of investors will say, I want to talk to your customers. Or they'll say, I'm going to set it up so you can talk to some of my customers and try to sell them. I've seen some founders do some amazing moves, and they put that right up front. They put testimonials from the users, and they said, here are the numbers. I want you to contact them before you talk to me any further. That is a sign of a founder that is completely confident and has made the right assumption and proven their assumptions when it comes to problem solution fit. The fourth one is product market fit. The first piece of advice I have right here is never say you have product market fit, because founders who assume they have product market fit usually don't have product market fit. You'll know if you have product market fit. You don't have to talk about it. Product market fit occurs when everything comes into alignment. It's all the assumptions up to this point in time that have been proven true and click together so neatly that you've got this exponential growth going on. The number one sign of product market fit is exponential growth, either revenue, users, any metric that you're measuring that truly shows that you have problem solution fit. And all of it's made possible because you have founder problem fit and founder market fit. The first pitfall are vanity metrics, just like problem solution fit. Founders show these vanity metrics. They could look like big numbers. They say, we have 3,000 users, but they don't talk about whether the growth has been there or whether there's been churn. Maybe it's 3,000 users right out of the gate, or maybe you pay for the 3,000 users. Same thing happens with revenue. Founders say, we have made $3 million in revenue. Okay, that's great. It's an impressive number until you realize they made $2 million in year one, and they made $750,000 year two, and then $250,000 year three. That's the reason you want to break up that number to true, legitimate, and authentic metrics that have shown that you have de-risked the investment and you can be trusted with their cold, hard cash, their investment capital. Another way founders make a gross assumption in this area is they don't look at their competition. What is that weakness? What is that gap that the startup can exploit that maybe the incumbent, the competitor, is not looking at? Your competition might be just on the verge of coming in and dropping $30 million on creating a similar solution, and they will come in and they will eat your lunch and blow you out of the water. Therefore, product market fit also implies that you have some type of competitive advantage. And that's the reason investors want to know you understand your competition. When you say things like, we're the only ones that do this, we are the best to do this, then you're making assumptions that will automatically sabotage your potential for product market fit, because there are things you don't know. And if you're not studying the competition, not just the big guys that look at your problem, look at your solution, say, that's a really great idea. Thank you for proving that out to us. We're going to go compete with you. But also the companies that are just about to launch or just launched on Product Hunt or in these obscure places where they're going to get a foothold and they're going to start landing and expanding. Their beachhead is established and they're going to come eat your lunch just as well. So you're getting it on both sides. You're getting it from the big competitors and you're getting it from the little guys. Don't make those assumptions that you have product market fit, and you prove this with growth metrics, legitimate metrics, not vanity metrics, but growth metrics that are predictable, that you can start to say, hey, we know if we spend $1 here on ads, we're going to get $1.50 out over here. And every time we get one user, they refer 2.5 other users. You put all that together and you've got product market fit, because you're going to start experiencing that hair on fire scenario where you can't fill orders fast enough. Servers are melting down. You can't onboard your engineering team or customer service fast enough. And you're worried your startup is going to shut down from too much business versus not enough of it. If you are trying to answer the question, how do we get more customers and how do we get this to grow, then you do not have product market fit yet. You made a bunch of assumptions that are not true. Go back and prove them. Now, let me just say this about product market fit. It takes years. Years. I've seen some really great stories about how quick companies get product market fit, and they make these fancy charts just to make other founders jealous. But a startup typically spends years, maybe up to 5 years, trying to figure out product market fit. It's very rare that you get that out of the gate because the stars have to align. Once they have problem solution fit and say, what are the distribution channels? What are the unit economics? What are the ways that we go out and actually deliver and get access to different markets or allow customers to have access to us? It takes a long time to figure it out. But if you've got good signs of it, believe me, investors will continue to invest to help you figure that out. If you've got all the other things lined up and you've got predictability and you can be trusted to figure out all your assumptions, validate or invalidate them, and get to the next stage. And finally, the last stage is business model fit. This is the final stage where not only do you have product market fit, but you can now scale. But before you start to think, well, I'm not at that stage yet, I'm going to take it all the way back down to the initial stages on what turns investors off because of the assumptions that you make as far as your business model. The number one mistake that I see from early stage founders pitching their startups to investors is they do not test their unit economics. They have faulty unit economics to begin with because they don't understand financial modeling, but at the same time, they don't pressure test their assumptions that customers are going to pay, that this is what the market will bear. You see these in these projections that go neatly up and to the right. Founders make assumptions and say, we're just going to grow 10% week over week, right? And they make that calculation and they go to investors and say, if you just give us your money, we can grow this 10% week over week. And investors look at you and say, how do you know? That's why I'm not a big fan of founders putting in their projections in their screener intro decks when they're pre-revenue. I am a big fan of being ready to show investors that you know how to build a solid financial model with all the assumptions that need to occur, need to be proven for you to get that up and to the right hockey stick growth graph. So in the beginning, when you're raising money, investors want to know that you have pressure tested your assumptions, which affects your market sizing, because when you do a bottom-up market analysis, a calculation, that's how many customers do you think will want your product or service and how much do you expect them to pay on an annual basis, and that's your market. But if you're assuming that your customers are going to pay X amount of dollars and you haven't tested out yet, maybe gotten initial commitments or gotten confirmation where people are willing to pay, you've got the data, yeah, people will whip out their credit card, users will pay this amount, then you are not pressure testing your assumptions enough. Now, it's okay if you don't have this data, but you have to know what your assumptions are in your business model. Think of it this way. If you were out there saying, we're going to sell ads, well, how do you know? How do you know the advertising market hasn't completely changed? If the advertising market stays the same, sure, you can use current metrics. But what if the advertising market completely shifts and the unit economics shift? And those are the mistakes that founders make. And that's why you want a financial model. And you want to be able to say, all right, advertising, but if this changes and we only make this amount in advertising, then the rest of our financial model gets affected. And that's where you, as a founder, must become financially savvy in order to understand what it takes to get to business model fit. If you can't de-risk that enough and make investors comfortable that you are the type of founder that's savvy enough to make those decisions, guess what? They're going to be deterred. It's going to be a no. A final word on business model fit is that it's okay to present a really unique business model. In fact, that's what investors are looking for. Something that turns the current industry upside down and will be tremendously disruptive. Same stuff like Uber did to cabs and Airbnb did to hotels. But the more innovative your business model proposes to be, the more you're going to have to prove it. But guess what? If you propose a disruptive business model and you actually go out and test it, and you have data, you are going to be heads and shoulders above other founders. You're going to stand out, and investors will flock to you. So think about those 5 assumptions and get real with yourself and say, am I stuck making assumptions that are unproven in any of these 5 areas, and how are they affecting investors' perception of our fundraise, of our startup? Have I de-risked my investment opportunity enough by validating or invalidating the assumptions that investors can trust me? For the next steps, watch the videos that I put on the screen. They're going to be relevant to you, and I appreciate you spending time with me. If you're part of our startups.com community, thank you so much for your support. If you're not, consider joining us so you can get an advisor like me. And while you're here, you might as well drop a like or a comment because I appreciate all the feedback and I'd love to have a chat with you. And if you're not subscribed already, then please consider subscribing if you appreciate this type of content. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next video.